UT Martin head coach Kevin McMillan joins us now, the longest tenured active OVC coach, year 16, third winningest coach in OVC women's basketball history. His team picked second in the preseason poll. So, Coach, thoughts on your team, and we'll go to some questions.
I thought going in that we were going to be, that we got a chance to be really, really good. And I still think that, but after practicing for a couple of weeks, I forgot or ignored the fact that we're still extremely young. Even, we had a good end of the last year, but we did that with mainly freshmen and sophomores. So we start out this season and you kind of think those freshmen and sophomores after the year that we put them through are juniors and seniors, but they're really not. They're still freshmen and sophomores. They're still sophomores and juniors. So the team is young again. So if we can stay healthy or get healthy, we may have some depth and may can do some things that we haven't been able to do in years. So we're kind of holding our breath to see if we can't go back to some basketball that we saw from us in the middle of the 2012, 15, 16 time.
Thanks, Coach. We'll go to some questions. Adam Wells is up first. Go ahead, Adam.
Morning, Coach.
Morning.
You just talked about the youth that your team has, but you also have a lot of experience because of the fact that you had to play, those different girls for, injury-related reasons last year. Even though you're not seeing it practice right now, how beneficial is that experience going to pay off once the season begins and you can kind of maybe start building that depth that you're hoping you have?
Well, I think when you've got kids that played 38 and 39 and 40 minutes for a majority of the season, I think that what you're going to see is they can't help that much in practice yet. Because it's like kids don't learn at practice typically. They've got to learn through experiences. And so when we start playing games, I would expect you're going to see us struggle a little bit out of the gate. And then there'll be a game pretty early where that experience that you're talking about forces some of those other ones to kind of have an aha moment. And I think that we're going to make a pretty big jump because we do have pieces that will fit together. It's just they kind of have to realize what we need to do. And when you've got 4 or 5 kids that have got the experience from last year, it's like some of them are going to go, oh, that's what we're doing. And when there's a majority that are out there playing, it helps. When you only have 1 or 2 and they're not a majority, it's hard to get those kids to understand very quickly. So I think your experience is going to pay off, but I think it's going to be middle December-ish before you start to see those kind of results that you're talking about.
As far as practices have gone through these first couple of weeks, have you seen more competitiveness out of the girls than maybe you have seen in years past because of the fact that they have that playing experience and even though they are young?
Well, we've seen competitives mainly because we've gotten to practice. And the last 2 years, we couldn't compete because we only had 6 kids or 7 kids. So I think what you're seeing this year is that we can do competitive things. And then you're seeing the older ones, even though they're really not that much older, you're seeing them kind of set a standard for those young ones or the new ones. And that's their first aha moment that they're having is that we talked about it all summer. We've talked about it before practice started. And once practice started, they're going like, oh, so that's what you meant when you said you have to go hard. And we are seeing that. But again, it's like once they see that, then they kind of put it in the vault and don't do anything with it until you have games. And then they're hopefully going to do something with that. And then they're going to put that in the vault. Well, then when conference comes out, that's another aha moment. And then when the tournament comes, it's another one. And so hopefully those kids with that experience are going to be able to Band-Aid us through while all these other kids kind of figure the world out.
As far as one of your players in Kinley McCarn, she obviously had a great start to her career with you guys. How much more development will we see out of her from what she's done this summer and then during the preseason? I know she's kind of been slowly getting back into things.
Well, what she's going to do you know, I would love to take credit for all of Kinley's abilities and successes because she, of course, I mean, never did anything before I got a hold of her. But what Kinley's going to do is kind of look around and see where the bar is. And then she's going to set it higher. And this year, she is thanking us for her not having to play point guard. And when that happens, she's going to, so Kinley's basically a freshman again, playing at her natural position because she didn't do that last year. And what she will do is kind of feel her world out, and probably middle of December-ish, she's going to kind of see what she needs to do, and she will put it on a level that I couldn't put it on if I were in her shoes. And it's fun to watch that in her. I think right now she's developed a lot of different parts of her game, but she's not sure which one she's going to tap into that's going to really be needed for us to be successful.
I will ask you this question that I always ask you. How is the health of the team right now, 2 weeks before the season?
Well, we were great until the last about week. And then we've had some ankles that have popped up. We had COVID raise its head. We've had strep throat. We've got, we do have a couple, 3 that are coming back from knee injuries that are about to get healthy. We're probably way more healthy than we have been in the last 5 years, but we do have some minor issues right now that we better be taking care of in the short run, or they could produce in the long run. But I think we're as healthy as we've been in a long time.
And then my last question for you is kind of what Kyle had said a second ago. You're entering your 15, 16. How do you think that you have changed as a head coach from that first year to now year 16?
You really need to ask a better question. How have I changed? Well, I've changed a lot. I can't get on kids the way that I used to. Fortunately, I can for some, like I can Kinley. And it makes it nice when I can get onto somebody like I used to. There's not a trust like there used to be with authority in general. That's just what we see in our world today. And so it takes longer. Kids have to stay with you longer to develop the trust so that you can really push on them. But with the world that we've created for them, we don't typically do that. So I actually probably, Adam, changed quite a bit for a couple of years. I'm actually now going back to more of what I was like before I think all of this stuff has happened. And you'll have to ask Kinley this question, but I feel way better. I feel way better every day at practice, saying what I want to say, doing what I want to do. And then I'm going to offend you. And when I do, let's sit down and talk about it. And we'll go back to practice the next day. And it's not going to be the end of the world. And we need to learn that that's okay. So yeah, I've changed a lot, but I'm actually now thinking that some of that change was probably not real smart on my part.
Appreciate it, Coach. You haven't changed with us though, so that's the good thing.
Well, if you ask, I try to answer whatever it is that you want me to talk about, and I try to answer it honestly and not beat around the bush, not be political. I see Kyle cringing sometimes whenever you ask me a question, but then typically he'll just shrug his shoulders and we'll be fine.
I appreciate it, Coach.
16 years ago, did you think you'd still be at UT Martin 16 years later?
That's a great question,
Or
Kyle.
did you even think of, maybe you never thought about it?
Well, I have always, every job that I've ever had in my lifetime, I always took it as if it was the last one I was going to ever have. So in that respect, no, I don't take a job and look at what that, and I know that's not the typical way to do things. I don't look at where is this job going to get me next. I just say, do the best job that I can where I am. And I try to leave somewhere better than I found it. But I never considered when I took this job that I would go anywhere else. But yeah, that's a really good question.
I'm going to play off that then. What makes UT Martin, Martin the city, UT Martin the community, everything such a good place to work? Like, and I look at you and Coach Simpson, who's been there a long time. Like, obviously, there's something that keeps you there while you've both had success.
Well, it's for me. I can't speak for Coach Simpson, but I bet you his answer is very similar. For me, it's relationships, and at the end of the day, it's not about wins and losses. It's not about championships and banners. All that stuff's great, but it's more about relationships with people. And, when you're in a smaller town and there's not as much things to do, you typically invest in people more. And what's so ironic is that's what every kid is clamoring for these days, are relationships. And then typically they make decisions that are contrary to what they say they want to do. And I kind of shake my head about it and go, okay, that's fine. But here we invest in each other. And that to me is what kind of sets this place apart. But you also have to embrace it. If you don't embrace it, you're not going to do those things. And it's not going to be a place that you're going to like, just like anywhere else has its positives and negatives.
Over OVC in general, you've seen a bunch of coaches, some teams have left, some teams have come in. How do you see it now, and like what you saw from teams last year, and where the league is maybe compared to different times of your tenure?
It's probably kind of around when I got in it. We had a run. The OVC typically was a league where you would see a team rise up and be really good, and then other teams would fall, and then another team would rise up and be really good, and other teams would fall, and we couldn't get teams to sustain success. I think we went through a time for about 4 or 5 years where there was 2 or 3 or 4 teams that were really good. And so what you saw was the league itself was way better. And you can just look at conference RPIs, and that'll play its way out. And you can look at seeding in the NCAA tournament for that. But I don't think, but that's not indicative of, for instance, our Jasmine's team that went to the NCAA tournament was one of the best teams in the OVC that I've seen, and of course one that I've been involved with, but we didn't get a great seed because the league wasn't that great. And then you got a Belmont team that got a 12 seed. Well, the reason they got a 12 seed was because the league was so good that year. I think we're at a place right now where we're kind of in a what are we going to do next type situation. I think we're doing that globally. How is this world going to play out with the big schools figuring out they're going to have 78 teams in one conference? And then how is the OVC going to come out on the other side of that? I don't know. But I think women's basketball is doing the same thing. I think we're looking at it going like, how are we going to come out on the other side? We need 3 or 4 good teams every single year that beat some teams that they shouldn't beat, that give our conference a chance in the NCAA tournament to win some games. And especially with the units, if the units are going to go the way they're going to go, we've got to get 11, 12, 13 seeds, and we've got to win some games for the conference. So I'm hoping that we started here, we moved here, we've kind of gone back to here. Hopefully we're headed back up in that direction. We've got the teams that can do it, but yeah, it's just talk right now. We've got to go do it.
Coach, appreciate your time, all your answers, and best of luck to you and your team this season.
Thanks, Kyle.